Hello, welcome to another video. It's been a while since I've made one, so I thought I probably should, since I've increased in subscribers since I last made a video, so should really. I thought I would tell you about my favourite films, since I did my favourite top 10 songs a couple of weeks ago. That video got re-uploaded because the original one got taken down because I used a video clip from Lynn Marlin, and YouTube goes, this video is banned worldwide, you cannot watch it anywhere. It was like, oh crap, get rid of that quick. So anyway, I've re-uploaded, taken that bit out. So I thought, well, I've done songs, so I'm going to do films. I want to just quickly apologise for the bad lighting. You can see I've got this yellow light on this side, and then I've got the sunlight on that side, and it's just all a bit weird. Hopefully soon I'm going to have a much better setup. I can't say too much about it right now. But for now, another shot from my bedroom. But hopefully soon I'm going to have a better place for filming. Anyway, got a list of films as I thought of them. So this isn't like a top 10 or anything. It's just basically films that I thought of, I've written down. I'm going to read them out in reverse order and then work my way up. Some of these aren't just single films. They're like a story of films and different things. Alright, so the last film I thought of on my list, working my way up, is The Matrix. This is the first Matrix. Matrix 2 and 3 are okay, but the first one, I just so amazingly epic. The first time I ever saw this was actually at Reading Festival, and I came in, they were showing it at cinema, and I only saw the end half of it. I didn't have a clue what was going on, because if you come in halfway through, you're like, what is going on? And I was sat next to somebody who was clearly high on something. I don't know what he'd been taking, but he was loving it. But then I watched it later, again properly from beginning to end, and it's like, oh, it makes a lot more sense this time. But I used to watch it around my friend's house quite a lot. Back in the days when I'd go to my friend's house a lot, and it was like the place we would all hang out all the time. I spoke about this place a bit in my my song video, like when we used to go out clubbing, then back to their place in the daytime. And again, this film would be on quite a lot, and it's just the whole concept. It was just so revolutionary at the time. The special effects, the idea, the whole thing was so new and original, and the actions. You know, I thought Keanu Reeves was really good at this role, and it's just an iconic film. I wish I'd seen it in the cinema. I saw 2 and 3 in the cinema. I saw number 2 in an IMAX screening in South Africa, in Cape Town. Like, huge screen. I'm trying to do that, but I'm out the camera range there, so there we go, you can see it now. So yeah, I kind of wish I saw the original in cinema, but yeah, I've seen it so many times. All these films are films that I could watch many times that I've listed. I mean, I've got a lot of films that I really, really like, but there's certain films that I could watch over and over and over and over and not get bored of them, so that's what these are. So The Matrix 1, definitely. Okay, the next film that was on my list, so I'm reading that in reverse order to what I thought of them, is Fight Club. This is, again, another epic film. The first time I saw this was at my friend's house, the same house. I went to that house a lot when I was younger. It's a shame it's not there anymore. It's a car park now, behind a fish shop now. But actually, it's not behind a fish shop, it's behind a wine shop. Used to be a house behind a fish shop, but the fish shop is now a wine shop, and the house is now a car park. I digress. Fight Club. Love this film. You can get so much from this film. It just basically... I mean, it's good on many levels. I mean, you could just have it as like a sort of an action Hollywood film, but then there's so much to it on a much deeper level, and you know, basically just saying it's almost like a philosophy of way of thinking, a way of life about this film. And obviously, I'm not saying you should go around blowing up buildings, but just the mentality of it, just saying the way we've built our society isn't right, and I don't know, it's just something about it. His philosophy is like the scene with the guy he's encourages to become a vet, and obviously that guy is going to go on and, you know, he's going to live his life fullest now, and he actually says, you know, he's going to have a nice breakfast the next day or whatever, and and then the twist when you realise that they're actually the same person. I just think it's a very clever film. Then you watch it again, you realise the clues are there all the way through. I know, it's just something about the Fight Club that I really like, and again, it's one of those films that I could watch over and over. Pulp Fiction, again, is just an epic film. It's a film I could watch over and over. I mean, that is just a classic. About last year I went to the Rooftop Cinema with Steve and we watched it on there. Missed it this year, unfortunately. I went to check when the dates for the Rooftop Cinema were this year, and I looked on the website and it was the week before. I was like, it's really annoying. But they weren't really showing films I wanted to see anyway. But last year, obviously, I went to see Pulp Fiction, so that was cool. Again, the soundtrack, again, is a classic. Absolutely love the music from that. It's very well thought out. I've always wanted to re-edit it, Pulp Fiction, into the correct order. I might actually do that one day. I might just download it and then just chop it all up and then re-edit it into the correct linear order and then watch it and see if it's still the same, because obviously the end of the film, the actual end of the story, is when Bruce Willis's character, what's his name, is it Butch? Something like that? He drives off on the chopper. That's the actual end of the film, but obviously that's in the middle of the film, so I might do it one day, see if it actually still works. I reckon it would. I've written down Cornetto Trilogy, but then I realised it's not actually the Cornetto Trilogy, because in the Cornetto Trilogy you've got Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and then World's End. And I like Shaun of the Dead and I like Hot Fuzz, but World's End, although it is an enjoyable film, it's not my favourite film. And the reason I originally wrote Trilogy is because I thought Paul was part of the Cornetto Trilogy, because obviously it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. But then I realised that it's not actually officially part of the trilogy, it's like a separate film. Shaun of the Dead, I can watch that over and over. Hot Fuzz, can watch that over and over, and Paul I can watch over and over, and obviously the official trilogy would be World's End. I watched that once at the cinema, and it was a really good film. The ending was a bit silly, I can't remember it now, but I do remember thinking at the time, that ending is a bit daft. I just find they're really funny, and I find the way Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are together in films is really funny. And I've got the original Spaced series that they do in Channel 4, and in my second DVD doesn't work. I lent it to somebody, and when I got it back, DVD 2 didn't play properly, and I'm really annoyed about that. But anyway, I've always loved their humour, and obviously if you know Spaced, you know the origin of Shaun of the Dead came from an episode of Spaced, which obviously came from when they were playing Resident Evil 2, or is it 3? I think it's 2. I used to love that game. That was a classic. But yeah, just their entire writing style and everything, their comedy, is something that really appeals to me. I love those films. Next is Alien. Aliens and Alien 3. I think they're brilliant. The original Alien, the first 1 and 2 are my absolute favourite. Then Alien 3... I do really like that one. It's not quite as good, I think, so obviously they're in the prison for that one. But the original Aliens, absolute classic, and Aliens it's just full on non-stop action. I think the first one's sort of like a sci-fi horror, and the second one's more of a sci-fi action. But I just think they're brilliant. Obviously, I've watched the latest Alien Covenant recently, and I didn't really give that brilliant reviews. It's an okay film. You can watch my review for that one if you want to see more. The originals, though, I mean, it's well known and classic now. When the alien first pops out the chest for the very first time, the other actors around didn't know what was going to happen because they wanted to get as realistic a reaction as possible. So that's just amazing. And the attention to detail on the set and just everything about it. It's just, all that's just lacking now. I mean, it's like when they try and rehash these stories over and over and over again. They have something brilliant and then they just make more and more and more, and they just can't recapture the original magic. That's the same with the other Matrix films. Matrix 1, that was just amazing, and then the Matrix 2 was still good, and then the Matrix 3, it's just like the magic's lost. But again, the original Alien films, absolutely love them. Star Wars films, I could watch all the Star Wars films over and over and over again, even The Phantom Menace, which I think for the first 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, is amazing. Obviously, the moment Jar Jar Binks comes in, it does go downhill pretty fast. But I do like just the whole saga of Star Wars. So I'm classing, as I said at the beginning, I'm not just doing individual films, I'm doing like the whole stories. So the whole saga of Star Wars, I absolutely love them. Just the fact that it spans so many generations. You see Anakin as a small boy and grow up, and then his kids grow up and then become old, and then their kids, they grow up. It's just spanning so many generations. There's nothing else that compares to Star Wars. I don't really need to say too much about it, because you either love it or you don't, and if you love it, you know what I'm talking about. So that has to be on my list, though, is Star Wars, all of them, and I'm really looking forward to episode 8 coming out soon. I'm getting quite excited for that. I don't know if I'm going to bother doing a film review for it, because I did start episode 7 and I did Rogue One on this channel, and they got almost no views because everyone's going to the established channels for film reviews, like the dedicated film review channels, to watch those. I find smaller films tend to do better on this channel, so I might not bother doing a review of that one. Lord of the Rings, again, another long series. I'm counting all 3 films as one. Not The Hobbit, though. I find The Hobbit, the problem I've got with that is it's far too slow. That was the smallest book out of all the books. You've got obviously The Hobbit, then you've got the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and The Hobbit was the smallest out of all the books, and then it was expanded into 3 films. That was just unnecessary. It should have been 1 film for 1 book, because it's far too slow. So I'm not including that. And I do like it, but they've been doing a run of them on TV recently, and I've just carried on flicking through the channels. There's something that I've also thought about just re-editing. I just can't be arsed, though, and just cut out all the boring bits and get it down to just 1 film. It might actually be watchable. But the Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and Return of the King, absolutely love those films. I could watch them over and over and over and over, and I see more detail in them every time because they put so much attention to detail in. Obviously, though, the more you watch them, the more you do notice there are some continuity errors in the films. The more you watch it, the more you notice them. But looking over the continuity errors, it's just such an amazing film. And the technology, the motion capture technology at the time for Smeagol was quite new, and the way they did it was quite revolutionary at the time. So absolutely love it. The stories are amazing. I've got the books. Just I don't know why I'm looking up there. You can't see what I'm looking at. I do have all the books. I really must. I don't read enough. I really should read more. I'm supposed to be doing a karate book reviews, and I'm just not reading. I just don't read enough. As I said in one of my CFS videos, it sends me to sleep. Anyway, Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee. Now, I've got all of Bruce Lee's films. I've got a 30th anniversary box set of his death, and I think the 40th anniversary's just gone by. I'm looking up to the book to it. Where is that? I can't actually see it. Where is that? It's a bit worrying. It's up there somewhere. Love Enter the Dragon. Obviously, this is the film that made Bruce Lee like a worldwide star. Obviously, he was famous before doing Enter the Dragon. He played Kato in the Green Hornet, and he had loads of other films in Hong Kong already. And I've got all those films on the box set, and it's really good. It's quite funny, the older ones, it's got such bad American dubbing on it. You see him talking, it's just like the voice they used for Bruce Lee. Oh dear, it's such a shame. It really is. But in Enter the Dragon, you hear him talking in his own voice, and obviously he can speak good English because he grew up in America. Obviously he is actually American. I know, it's just something about that. I've actually got quite a lot of stuff of Bruce Lee. I've got a few DVDs, some books and stuff. Anything to do with Bruce Lee, absolutely love. But Enter the Dragon, something about that film, it's just I don't know, it's just the storytelling. It's actually quite a basic story. It's like, there's a bad guy on an island, he's selling drugs, and he has a martial art tournament, and then he uses that to recruit people to sell his drugs, and then Bruce Lee's character is sent in. He plays a character called Lee. So he goes in, he's asked to investigate, gets evidence so that the authorities can come in. But although the storyline's quite simple, just so many iconic scenes from that film, and I just everything about it, you can't fault it. If you like martial art films, and this is the classic, if you're into martial art films, you have to like Enter the Dragon. It's just a classic good versus evil film. And it shows, and it's quite in depth as well, because it shows a lot of things that were going on at the time, like the rich and the poor. You know, it shows racial profiling and stuff like that in America. It's just, you know, really good. And you got the slums, and you know, they're saying you got slums, ghettos, the same all over the world, and. Yeah, absolutely love it. You can't fault this film. Lost count of the amount of times I watched Enter the Dragon. And of course, what some people don't know is it's like the Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee are in the film together. But not sure if Jackie Chan actually got credited. He's like Bruce Lee's going through beating up all the bad guys, and Jackie Chan's in there with nunchucks about 5 seconds before quickly getting dispatched. Then he's gone. He wasn't like a mega star at the time, but you know, up and coming. Then Once Upon a Time in China, another martial art film. What a surprise. I've got the entire box set of Once Upon a Time in China. The first one though, absolutely love it. It's based on the real life of Wong Fei Hung. I think I pronounced that right. Here it is. I could have got the boxes down for the other films, but I'm not sure where the others are. I'm looking up. My DVD and Blu-ray collection is above me on a shelf, which is why I keep looking up. But this one happens to be on the front, which is why I grabbed it. First one. There are a few like little oddities in it, like mistranslations. Like there's a character in it called Aunt 13. I think she's called something else in the second film. And she's not an aunt at all. She's not his 13th aunt at all. And it's just a name that they give. It's like something that's lost in translation. And because it's obvious, like one of the characters like fancies her or something, and it's like, you know, it's a bit weird to fancy your aunt, but it's just a mistranslation. Once you get past that, no, this is such a good film. It shows like the Western colonies going into China. A lot of my old kung fu films often show Western people, like the Americans and the Brits and missionaries going over to spreading religion stuff, as the bad guys. So we're used to seeing like our films, you know, over in the West as we're the good guys and the foreigners are the bad guys. Obviously, where these films are made, you know, we're the foreigners and they're the good guys, we're the bad guys. It's just, you know, every film company is going to have their local propaganda showing, you know, I could think of some films where I can't think of any off the top of my head. But like American films in particular, you know, the Americans are always the heroes and the foreigners are always the bad guys. There's a lot of films in like in the 60s or 70s or whatever, where Chinese are based as stupid idiot, like this, and it's all a bit racist. Where if you watch the films made in China at the time, the Chinese are always very elegant and respectful and wise, and the Americans are the stupid idiots and the bad guys. So it's each country has its own particular take on foreigners, and this film is no different. Although these films aren't actually that old. What's the year on these? 1993, so it's not too old, but it's still shown like the Westerners as the bad guys intruding on their way of life. But even so, and the soundtrack is absolutely epic. Every time there's a film with Wong Fei Hung in it, and there's you've got the same music. Jackie Chan did a take on this guy as well, and that completely different look, but it has the same similar soundtrack. And obviously this guy really did exist one day, and you know, he's sort of like in the world of kung fu, he's like a legend. Legendary fighter, legendary healer, and he worked for his community. Having the films based on him, and it's just such a good film, and I just love it, every aspect of it. And there's multiple stories as well. It's not just a story with a subplot. There's multiple stories all interwoven with each other, and it's just such a good film. I say, but the 2 and 3 are good, but I say this list is for films that I want to watch over and over and over again, and number 1 is the one that I think when I first bought that DVD, I had it on, I was just watching it constantly. I think I watched it like every day for like a month. Yeah, I need a life. Lethal Weapon films. My favourite Lethal Weapon film is Lethal Weapon 1. Absolutely love it. Lethal Weapon 2 is good, 3 is good, and 4 is good, but there's just something about the original Lethal Weapon film that I absolutely love. It's hard to put my finger on it. I mean, I used to be able to quote lines from it and just everything about it. I used to quote things like, because there's a scene where Mr. Joshua has a cigarette lighter under his arm and he's burning his arm like this. And I don't know, for some reason about that film I used to quote that bit. Yeah, don't try this at home, kids. I don't know why, there's something about that one scene. This is such an irrelevant scene to the film, but it's basically showing his, you know, his determination to follow his loyalty, to follow the orders, and the storyline with Riggs and Murdoch, and you know, he's suicidal because he's lost his wife, and then you've got the Murdoch family, and they all come together and they help him, and then they end up all becoming, you know, a giant family right through, you know, the other films. I don't know, there's something, I could watch that over, right from the very beginning, just every single scene, right from the beginning, like they're selling drugs in the middle of Christmas trees to, and there's a scene in it with, they got a mobile phone, great big chunky box, you know, obviously mobile phones were brand new back then when it was made, and the soundtrack, it's very emotional. Although it's a non-stop action film, it really gets you in the feels as well. Love that film. Another Mel Gibson film, Mad Max. All the Mad Maxes. Mad Max 1, such an epic classic. I've watched that so many times. And then Mad Max 2 is just on a whole another level of brilliance. It just elevates it up. There's quite often you get sequels which aren't as good as the originals, but this one, the sequel is just so much better because the original film was clearly made on a tight budget, and it's an independent film, and then obviously it gets taken over and it's got a lot more money goes into the next one, and then you've got Beyond Thunderdome again. Just, I mean, I love the soundtrack to Thunderdome with Tina Turner. The Mad Max 4 was supposed to have Mel Gibson originally. Fury Road was originally supposed to have Mel Gibson, but it just took so long to make, and there's so many delays. And then obviously Mel Gibson had his little episode which we won't go into, and then it just ended up with him not being in it. I think it would have been nice if he was in number 4, but the original 1 and 2. I quite like apocalyptic films. I've got a whole playlist of music just of apocalyptic films. Some things like Mad Max. What else? Obviously Matrix. You could say that's a post-apocalyptic, but in a different way. Obviously Turbo Kid. Got a film review for that on my channel. Can't think of any right now. My mind's gone blank on post-apocalyptic films. Terminator films. Is Terminator even on my list? I haven't even put Terminator on my list. I love the Terminator films. 1 and 2, obviously. 3 is awful. 4, 5, 6. How many have they even made? I can't remember. But no, Terminator's not on my list. I just thought of it now. But yeah, completely different film now. When Harry Met Sally. I love this film. I don't know why, but When Harry Met Sally is definitely one of my all-time favourite films. It is just a classic romance of friends. The original ending, not a lot of people know this, the original ending for When Harry Met Sally, they weren't going to get together because they thought that would be more realistic, because they were friends for so long, then they tried getting together and it didn't work, and then the friendship sort of broke down and they had an argument. And the original ending was supposed to be that then they go their separate ways, because that would have been more realistic. But the actual ending they use, obviously they get together and they live happily ever after, and with all the sources on the side, of course. And it's got Meg Ryan when she's still young and beautiful, and it's got Carrie Fisher when she was still young and beautiful. Just everything about it. It's actually funny, on the back of the box it says about it's like a romance in the modern age and it's actually, you know, the age is not quite as modern as it used to be, but I just love the idea that, you know, they're supposed to be together and fate keeps bringing them together, because they start off with their drive in New York, and then are they going to New York? I want to say Chicago, but I think they came out of Chicago, and then they go to New York, and then they meet again years later, and then they meet again. They just keep meeting, and fate just brings them together over and over and over, till eventually they end up being together. And I just think it's just such a happy, good, feel-good film, and it's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes I think, oh, it's the kind of romance I would like, but maybe without the arguments. My number one film is The Crow. The Crow is perfect on every level. It just is. It's dark, it's moody, it's emotional, you know, it's a love story, it's an action story, it's a ghost story, it's a story about growing up and discovering yourself. It's a story about realising actually drugs suck. It's got comedy in it. Although some people are like, where's the comedy? Well, he does tell a joke. Jesus walks into an inn and says, hands him 3 nails, says, can you put me up for the night? That's hilarious. But no, everything about the film is perfect. Obviously, there's a sequel, The Crow 2. I have watched it. It's good. It's not as good, and obviously then there's like a TV series which kind of turned into a film, and they played a whole thing with like snakes. It's like good people have crows, bad people have snakes, and it's just like, okay, this isn't working quite as well. There's been talk of a remake of The Crow for years. I remember almost as soon as the original came out, they've been talking about remakes. I think Rob Zombie was going to do something at one point. What happened to that? But no, The Crow, I mean, a lot of people are very wary about a remake because the original was so good on so many levels, and the soundtrack is so good. Everything about it was good. And it's a shame that obviously Brandon Lee died during the film, and everyone thought, oh, it's some kind of curse between, you know, because obviously Bruce Lee died mysteriously and Brandon Lee died mysteriously. If you don't know, Bruce Lee is Brandon Lee's dad. Obviously the reason Bruce Lee died is because he had a prescription painkiller for somebody else and his brain started up and died, which is why you should never have someone else's prescription drugs. You just don't do it. And the reason Brandon Lee died is because he was shot, but what they did was, to save money, instead of buying blank bullets for the guns for the set, what they did was they used real bullets and then converted them into blank. So they took the projectile out, but obviously this didn't work properly because obviously he got shot and he died. So they tried making their own blanks and that didn't work and he died. So never do that. If you want blanks, buy blanks. It's worth spending the extra money. So obviously they had to use someone else to do the extras at the end, but how they did that, obviously, you know, because he has his hair covering his face and he's got the white makeup on, it's easy to use a double. So with the Fast and Furious films, that was a bit more difficult with Paul Walker, because obviously it's all lit up and you can see his face clearly, and that if you watch a documentary about it, saying the challenges they had, the differences, you know, if Paul Walker had long hair covering his face and thick heavy makeup on the whole time, it would have been a bit easier to do a double. But obviously Brandon Lee, that's how they got away with it. But I think he shot most of the film before dying. I think there's only a couple of scenes at the end actually as a double. But I just love that film. I think The Crow, I probably watched The Crow more times than any other film that I've owned. And I could watch it again quite happily today, and I could watch it again happily tomorrow. And there used to be a time when I would just quote things from it all the time. It's pretty sad and geeky all the time. Things like, you know, it can't rain all the time. But hey, I live in Britain, it can rain all the time. And they haven't said that. There's actually a couple of patches of blue sky at the moment. So yeah, those are my favourite films. I've got lots of other films that I really like. Actually, most of my DVD collection is actually Doctor Who, going right back to the pilot episode. I don't have any of Matt Smith's or Peter Capaldi's episodes, but I've got pretty much every other episode going, like all the William Hartnell, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, blah 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 all the way through. This isn't a Doctor Who video. So those are my favourite films. Obviously I've got lots of other films that I really like. I could have put so many other films on this, and there's so many other Kung Fu films. I'm looking at, I can see on my collection, Quest for the Holy Grail, that is an epic film, along with Life of Brian. I love the Monty Python films. Another film I'm looking at is Pi. This is a film that not many people know about. I don't mean American Pie, although I do own the American Pie films. I'll just grab the DVD. Here it is, Pi! That's what the back looks like. I highly recommend you watch this one, although it's not on my list of favourite films, because these are films that I've watched over and over and over again. I have watched this a few times, but it's not the sort of film you can watch over and over and over and over and over again. But I do recommend you do watch it at least once. It's a really interesting film. It's nothing really I can compare it to. There's nothing out there that I can think of that I can compare it to. Go watch it. There's a little bit of a cringe moment in the middle, but generally it's such what age rate? It's an age rate 15 in the UK. I don't know what that would be in other countries, but 15 in the UK. So go and watch that one. Something interesting, unique and different again, but it's not in my list of films that I could watch like non-stop, but it is a film of note. So anyway, that's my list of films. I bet I've been going on far too long. Should be some interesting karate videos coming up soon if I get my arse in gear. And some interesting vlogs, hopefully. We'll see. I do have plans, and I haven't made a video in a while, but I do have plans and ideas. Alright, so check out my videos, karate videos, vlogs, challenges. Oh, I haven't made a challenge for a while. I don't know what's going on in challenge. Oh, firewalk challenge for charity. I've got a doing a firewalk challenge for charity. Please sponsor me below. It goes to help disabled children. It's all good causes. That'd be brilliant if you sponsor me for that. So yeah, it'd be a challenge video. And okay, I subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'm gonna go and get some lunch. It's almost 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm starving. You didn't need to know that. Alright, cheers, thanks, bye!